What's your response when someone asks you why you cut contact with your parents? This is the question that I have heard more times than I can count. It arrives in different wrappings, sometimes casual and tossed over the shoulder, sometimes with sympathy, sometimes jagged with suspicion. So, what about your parents? It doesn't matter where I am, a wedding, a dinner party, even the checkout line at the grocery store when I bump into an old classmate. The question follows me. I've trained myself for years to answer with two words that, most of the time, work like a locked gate. It's complicated. That phrase has saved me more times than I can say. It discourages most people, the polite ones anyway. They nod, look away, change the subject. But there are others, the curious, the nosy, the self-righteous, who treat the phrase as an invitation, not a boundary. And inevitably, eventually, they say the thing, the line that hangs in the air like smoke. But they're your parents. The assumption underneath it is always the same, that blood erases betrayal, that raising a child is a lifetime pass, that no matter what happens, you owe your parents loyalty. My husband Daniel has known the truth about my childhood for a decade. He was the first person I told the whole truth to, really told it, all the horrible facts and painful feelings. We were 22 then, barely out of college, both working terrible jobs. He asked me one night why I always left the room when family came up in conversation with friends. I remember the way his hand rested on mine, not moving, not pressing, just steady. I remember blurting it out, the ugly story tumbling over itself. And Daniel didn't flinch. He didn't pity me. He didn't say the line. He just listened. We've been married nearly 10 years now, and if I've learned anything, it's that silence can be a survival tool. He knows why I don't call my mother on holidays. He knows why I tense when people talk about forgiveness. And he's never once asked me to break my silence and explain myself to others. It's one of the many reasons I love him. When Daniel suggested we have dinner with his colleague Billy and Billy's wife Jennifer, I agreed. I'd met Billy briefly a couple of times, and he was the sort of man people liked easily. He had a great laugh and could make even small things into entertaining stories. And Daniel liked him, so that was enough for me. They're good people, Daniel said, and I nodded and agreed to dinner with a smile. We chose a restaurant with dark wood booths and soft lighting, a place that felt comfortable to me. I dressed carefully, not too formal, not too casual. I told myself it would be fine, just dinner, just conversation. But my anxiety was always there. I'm a homebody and would always rather be at home on the couch with takeout and a documentary than out in a restaurant. But Daniel liked to be out with friends, so when he asked, I obliged. Jennifer arrived in a swirl of perfume and bright laughter. She was beautiful, polished in a way that looked effortless but probably wasn't. Her glossy hair caught the light, her nails were perfect, and she hugged me as though we were already friends. For the first hour it was easy. She asked about my job, I asked about hers, we swapped travel stories. She teased Billy about his cooking disasters, and I laughed along. But I could feel her eyes, sharp even behind the friendliness. Jennifer wasn't the type to leave questions unasked. So, she said, swirling her wine, Daniel mentioned you're planning to celebrate your anniversary soon. 10 years, right? I nodded. Yes. I smiled at Daniel, who was smiling at me. Are your parents helping with the party? I bet your mom must be so excited to celebrate you two. It was like a pinprick, small but immediate. I felt the old script unspooling inside me. No, I replied, I don't really have contact with my parents. Jennifer blinked. The smile faltered for a second, then reappeared, softer this time. Oh, that must be hard. It's not, I said quickly. Then, realizing how sharp I sounded, I added, it's just the way things are. But Jennifer didn't take the hint. She leaned forward, elbows on the table. But they're your parents, she said, almost gently, like she was offering me a reminder. I felt my stomach tighten. They raised you, she continued. I can't imagine parents doing something so bad you'd stop talking to them altogether. My fork clinked against my plate. I reached for the old defense. It's complicated. Jennifer tilted her head. Are you sure you can't reconcile? Life's short. Someday you might regret it. I set my fork down. I don't want to talk about it. There was steel in my voice, but Jennifer either didn't hear it or chose to ignore it. Jen, leave it, Billy said. Well, she said snappishly, if we're going to be hanging out, I think I have a right to know what kind of people they are. The words hit me like a slap. Across the table, Billy winced. Jennifer, he said, low and warning, drop it. But she didn't. I felt the heat rise in my chest. Years of swallowing the story, years of smiling and saying, it's complicated, years of being told I'd regret it someday, of being told I should forgive. Something in me cracked. My stepfather was abusive, I told her, my voice cutting through the clatter of the restaurant, my eyes locked on hers. Jennifer blinked and looked startled, but I didn't stop. When I told my mother, she chose him. I went to the police. He served 7 years in prison, which my mother never forgave me for, and the day he got out, she picked him up and took him home. They're still together. The table went silent. Billy's eyes dropped. Daniel's hand slid across mine under the table. Jennifer's lips parted, but for once, no words came. I pushed myself back against the booth and gripped my purse. My heart was pounding, but my voice was steady. Daniel, you're welcome to spend time with Billy, but I won't spend time with someone who has no respect for boundaries or privacy. I stood, smoothed my dress, and walked out. Daniel caught up with me outside. He didn't try to convince me to go back in. He just wrapped his arm around me, kissed the side of my head, and said, let's go home. He had paid our half of the bill and said he'd text Billy later. The fallout was quiet but clear. Daniel and Billy remained friends, but Jennifer was never invited to our home. At work events, she avoided me, her smile brittle, her eyes averted. I didn't mind. For once, I hadn't swallowed the story. For once, I hadn't hidden behind "it's complicated." And although I hated that it came spilling out at a dinner table, I felt something loosen inside me. Not relief exactly, but something close. People still ask, of course. The question hasn't gone away, but something in me has shifted. Now when someone says, but they're your parents, I no longer shrink. I no longer smooth it over for their comfort. I remember Jennifer's face that night, stunned into silence, and I remember my own voice clear and unshakable. Now when I hear the line, I say, some people should never be parents, and if they push, I tell them the truth. The truth is ugly. It's not a story people want to hear, but it's my truth, and I'm not carrying the shame of someone else's actions anymore. If they push me for the truth and then it disturbs them, that's their problem, not mine. Thank you for joining me for this story. If you enjoyed this reading, please hit the like button, leave us a comment, and subscribe so you don't miss future uploads. This has been Tales by Rachel, where we breathe life into every story.